this is another thing too, as we go deep inside the mind of a pimp, that you got to understand too about this game, right?
Bitch, you want all this pimping you can't afford. Perform like a punk, but want a winner's reward. Some suckers give you points, but bitch, you never scored. If you ain't paying pimping, then bitch, you getting ignored. Okay. I'm so sick of these.
Not only does the pimping get greater with every hoe that blows, but hey man, turnouts make your pimping so much better. Shout out to all the turnouts that I done had, and I done had quite a few of them, man. You know, shout out to all the hoes I done had that, you know, didn't do no snitch shit or no setup shit or no punk shit, right? If you ain't never did no shit like that, man, even if you might have been a punk, mark ass, maggot ass, you know, as long as you ain't do no police shit or no harmful shit to a pimp, man, shout out to you, right? But listen, man, the turnouts though, the turnouts just, you know, they just make your pimping so much better, man. Especially when you got a young, fresh turnout, like she might be fresh out of high school or something, or she might, you know, be 19, 20 years old or something. I'm talking about them young, fresh to the game turnouts, man. You know, at least for me, they made me greater. I don't know about anybody else who done had turnouts, man, but me, turnouts have made me greater, like exponentially greater, right? Just give you an example, right? And I don't really vocalize this a lot. A lot of times when people ask me about when I stopped drinking, I usually will say that it was because I was turning 30 years old, because I stopped drinking on my 30th birthday. And I wanted to come into my 30s on a better note, a healthier note and shit like that, right? But also what factored into that I don't really say much, but definitely played a major role in it, is because at the time I had a beautiful turnout and I didn't want her to know me like that. I didn't want her to know me as somebody that gets drunk off alcohol. I wanted her to know me on a better note, right? Now, I had the bitch for like a year before I stopped drinking, right? But I did something different with her that I hadn't done with no other hoes that I had before her, right? Even turnouts that I had before her, I never did this, right? But this particular hoe, I drank for like a year while I had her before I quit drinking, but I never let her see me drink. And I never let her see me under the influence of alcohol. Like I never let her see me get drunk. I never let her see me drunk, and I never let her see me actually drink. Like the bitch she never seen me do this with alcohol, and she never seen me faded. Never. You know what I mean? Because see, people might think it's strange, especially certain squares, you know, that 304s call they folks daddy and shit like that. But that's really what the pimping is. The pimping is so many things, and within those so many things that the pimping is to a 304, one of those things is a father figure, right? And on the same token, I would never let my kids, if I did drink, I would never let my kids see me drink. I wouldn't want my kids to see me under the influence of alcohol, right? Because I wouldn't want to set a bad example to them, right? And this turnout that I'm talking about at this time, she didn't drink. She didn't smoke. She didn't do none of that, right? So I didn't want to let her see me like that and make her think that was okay, right? And do you know, man, that shit made my pimping so much better, like, because the fact that I didn't let her see me drink, I drank a lot less. Because when you got 304s that you're going to drink in front of, you're going to drink more. And then if you got 304s that also drink, you're going to drink that much more. But when you a pimp and you trying to set the best example to your turnout, and this turnout doesn't drink, then, you know, by you not drinking in front of her, that's going to minimize your alcohol consumption, right? And then, like I said, when I was turning 30 years old, I just said to myself, you know what, I'm going to stop drinking. And that's what I did. And once I quit drinking altogether, my mind was sharper. My mind was clearer. I thought faster. I pimped way harder and faster and smoother. And, you know, with a lot more finesse. My pimping just got way greater after that. Like once I put the alcohol completely down, man, my pimping got way better. You know what I mean? I wasn't, doing all that to the bitch so much, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't as quick tempered without the alcohol. So I'm not getting as easily upset. So I'm thinking of other ways, other consequences to get my point across than physically with my hands. I'm using this to get my point across and this to get my point across as opposed to this to get my point across so much. And on the same token, I use this a whole lot more to guide a 304, to lace a 304, right? To make a 304 better. And then by me making myself better, that made me want to like invest in my 304s that much more to make them better, right? So this is just an example of how, like turnouts in particular will make your pimping better, right? Because it's a different level of responsibility. See, it's different if you knock a chick that come from some other pimping, right? You still got a responsibility to her, but when you introduce somebody to the game and everything that they know that they're learning is based on what you giving them, what you feeding them, that's a big responsibility. And you don't want to turn a bitch into a punk in the game. You want to turn a bitch into a champion in the game. So because of that, you're not going to be setting a bad example, man. Just give you an idea, right? And I've told this story before too. Actually, I got a couple stories on this, right? The first story, I've shared both of these stories with y'all before. I'll share it again, right? I remember I'm on OBT and I got a turnout down on OBT and I got a partner of mine. He down with me on OBT. He got a fresh turnout too. My turnout is a white, his turnout is a white, right? So we down and my people's, she called me and she say, Daddy, I just want to let you know I'm at 1700 right now. And, I'm about to leave a trap where where you have me usually leave it at, right? I'm like, okay, cool. I said, you could take it in right now if you want to. And she was like, nah, why would I take it in now? I'm already at 1700. I might as well stay down until I get the 2 bands. I said, that's right, bitch. Okay, cool. Go ahead, stay down, make it happen then. You know what I mean? I gave her little words of encouragement and I got off the phone with the bitch, right? But Pimpin' was right there next to me, so he heard the whole conversation, right? So right after that, he called his. He like, yeah, what you got? And she like, oh, I'm at like 600 right now. And they had been down for about the same amount of time, right? And he start cussing the bitch out. You only got 600? Woody, 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 woo. And see, this is what a lot of pimps don't say, and a lot of pimps ain't gonna tell you. Now, at that particular time, I was having an excellent run with that. You know what I mean? Like the particular turnout that I'm talking about that I had down on OBT at that time, I had like a 60-day period where her worst day, 60 days straight, her worst day was like 900 and some change, like 925, 950 or something. That was her worst day. Every other day was over a band. Some days she might check 25. Some days she might check 11. Some days she might check 31. Some days she might check 19. But her worst day out of them 60 days, only one day she checked less than a band. It was like 900 or something, right? So, but what people ain't gonna tell you is that, right before that run, it might have been tight. Like matter of fact, it wasn't like terrible, but right before we got to Orlando and started that run, we was in Miami. And Miami was cool, but I wasn't checking it like that in Miami. I was having like, $500 and $600 days, some days twos and fews and shit like that. You know what I mean? But my point is everybody had a turn, man. And he did one of the worst things that you could do, right? He like, you only got $600. Woo, 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 woo. My partner over here, she already at 1700. and what's the difference between you and her? Woo, woo, woo. It's the worst thing you could do. Man, listen, and this is somebody at the time, he had been in the game for years. I think he'd been in the game longer than me at that time, right? And, you know, for the pimping who don't know no better, just let me tell you something, man. Don't ever compare your 304 to your partner's 304 or to any other 304, whether it's her wifey. Don't compare that bitch to nobody, because you thinking it's going to encourage her, right? You're thinking this is what how a pimp is thinking, right? Pimping is thinking like, if I tell this she only has 600 right now, if I tell her that my partner's is at 1,700, it's gonna get her fired up. She gonna think, well, shit, that ain't better than me. If she can do it, I know I could do it too, and it's gonna make the either match that performance or outdo that performance, right? This is how, you know, when pimping says something like that to the bitch, this is how you think she gonna respond, right? But she's not even going to be able to get to that thought, because she's going to be stuck at this other, and you comparing her to this other. Like, oh, you think I'm less than that? You think that better than me? Like, why would you compare me to another? This is how the bitch is always going to think. You're never going to get the desired effect by doing that. So therefore, never do it. I don't give a damn if it's the most confident bitch in the world, highest self-esteem. Don't never do that. It's always a mistake. Don't never compare to the next, unless you just don't like that bitch and you really just trying to hurt her feelings and make her blow or something like that. You think she's just a weak ass bitch and you don't care for the, that's different. But if you like this bitch, or if you want to maintain this, you got any type of concern for her or love for her, don't never compare that bitch to another bitch. It's always going to turn out bad for you, right? So that was one mistake that he made, right? Another major mistake that he made is, again, like I said, you know, me, when I have a turnout, I'm on my best behavior. Not only is the bitch not finna see me drinking or doing none of that shit, you know, the bitch ain't gonna see me being messy. She not gonna see me just leaving dirty clothes laying around. She not gonna see me, you know, accumulating a sink full of dirty dishes. She not gonna see me with an overflowing trash can. She not just finna see me unpimpish in no type of way, right? Now, you know, at times, some of those things she might take care of. She might take care of the dishes. She might take care of the trash. She might take care of the laundry and shit like that. Well, not me, because I like doing my own laundry, but that's a whole nother conversation. I just like doing my own laundry, right? But like I've said before, the might be on automatic for a week or something like that. When she come back from being on automatic for a week, she not gonna come back to a filthy ass crib because she wasn't there to take care of the shit she normally take care of. No, I'm a clean pimp. So if I'm by myself, I'm gonna wash dishes, I'm gonna take out the trash, I'm gonna do all that shit. You know what I mean? But so I say all that to say a pimp gonna be on his best behavior in front of a, especially a turnout, right? But this guy who went off on the bitch for only making 600, which, by the way, 600, that's decent. You know what I mean? Because see, this is how a pimp think, right? A pimp is thinking like, I need to make more than I spend every day. And yeah, you're gonna have your days where you spend more than 600, but you know, daily expenses on some daily expenses type shit, your daily expenses shouldn't be no more than 600. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like gas money, food, you know, even if you smoke weed or drink, or, you know, you go fall into the strip club, and all of that shit accumulated shouldn't be no more than 600 every day. If your daily expenses is like on your, you know, miscellaneous daily expenses, I ain't talking about bills and shit. I'm just talking about your daily expenses. If your daily expenses is more than $600 every day, you tripping. You know, you you gotta check yourself. But anyway, you know, 600, that's better than zero. Shit, you could, and if you smart with it, you could do something with it. You know, if she consistently checking that, and you know, you pimping accordingly, you gonna encourage the bitch and keep lacing the bitch. She gonna get better and better. But anyway, he had introduced the bitch to cocaine. See, and he not thinking about that. I ain't introduced my bitch to no powder or no, you know, mind altering substances, period. I ain't introduced her to nothing but some game. he introduced her to powder, right? You know, powder is like that's one of the most terrible things you can introduce a 304 to, because that shit is going to become like candy to him. It's going to be like Starburst and Skittles to a bitch. You know, she going to always want powder after that. That was the dumbest shit he could have did, but he was a powder head. And he introduced her to that shit. He started doing it with her. And then, needless to say, whenever she come across a trick that got powder, she going to do it with the trick. What make you think that she only gonna do powder with your dumb ass? What make you think that if a trick present a bump to her, she ain't gonna hit it? What make you think that? You're stupid. You know what I mean? So he was having that problem, constantly catching her, you know, doing lines with tricks, right? So, you know, I'm giving you the difference between somebody that's just in the game, that say they a pimp, and deep inside the mind of somebody who's actually doing some pimping, right? When you actually doing some pimping, man, you want to be on your best behavior in front of this 304. Like I said before, man, you want to be godlike in front of this 304 every chance you get. You want to be godlike. God ain't finna be a slave to no powder. God ain't finna be a slave to no alcohol. God ain't finna be going through nobody's drive-through getting fast food and shit like that. God ain't finna do that. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna never hear God fart. You ain't gonna never hear God piss. You ain't gonna never see God slobbering or drooling. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna never see God off key. You know, so you want to be godlike in front of this 304 at all times, man.
Let's go. You see, the God anointed game appointed PI since knee high. Knew that God appointed me to be fly. My reply to the blessing, only one decision for me, man, that integrated and demonstrated it's obligatory. Okay. So begins the story. These blessings I'm not in tune with.
But getting back to this game that I never left.
Baby, yeah, where you been?